The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, sorry about that. I started it without the sound. It is a live webinar, so do excuse me. I'll just start again. So just to introduce myself, my name is Frankie Glaister, and today I will be discussing capacity planning and resource management. The three topics that I'm going to look into are: why are agencies finding capacity planning and resource management a challenge, and how can this be addressed? Moving on then to: what effect does inaccurate capacity planning and resource management have on an agency? And finally, we'll be looking at what are the benefits of using the correct tools. Now, as I'm going throughout, I will release a couple of polls. So for anybody that wants to answer those, feel free. And if I can work out how to, I will release the results as well. But don't worry, it will be all confidential. So the first topic we're going to discuss today is: why are agencies finding capacity planning and resource management a challenge, and how can this be addressed? So first of all, just to clarify, capacity planning is done 1 to 4 months in advance, looking at forecasting and ensuring that you are selling the correct number of hours to meet your target. Resource management is looking at 1 to 4 weeks in advance to schedule resource and look at jobs coming up closer to the time. So to begin with, one of the challenges occurs from agencies not actually knowing how many hours they have to sell. So a basic calculation is, say if you have 10 employees, and let's say that they work 37 and a half hours a week. So that's 375 hours altogether. If you want your staff to be, let's say, 70% utilised, what you would need to do is you would then need to times the 375 by the 70%. That gives you 262.5 hours a week that you need to be selling through the business. Now, I haven't taken holiday and things like that into consideration. So obviously, in a more in-depth calculation, that would need to be accounted for. Okay, so that is your starting point, and that is actually where a lot of agencies do have the challenge, because they haven't got those set internal calculations in place to begin with. Now, to meet this target of the number of hours that you want to be selling throughout the business each week, you need to keep track of your estimates. You need to keep track of, capacity plans and things like that. Now, to do that, you need to ensure that an estimate such as this is as accurate and a true reflection as possible of the job that you're estimating. So I've got an example here, and what I've done is I've broken it down into 5 different phases of the job. Okay, I've worked out what resource we need, what hours we need for that resource, so under the estimated units. It then has, if you use some sort of tool for your estimating, it should bring up an estimated cost and an estimated charge. Okay, now what a lot of agencies do, and this is where a lot of them go wrong and have issues when, capacity planning and resource managing, sorry, should I say, is a lot of agencies will actually adjust the estimate to meet a client's budget rather than putting in a true reflection and adjusting a quote instead. They will adjust it within this area. So one tip is always keep your estimate completely separate from your quote. So in the estimate, a job brief comes through and you say, this is your internal budget that you need to take account of. So you need to say, right, how long is it going to take us? What tasks do we need to do within? What's the duration we've got? And what resource do we need? If there's any adjustments needed, for example, if they do have a budget that they've given you, that can be adjusted in a quoted area. And if you want to, again, from using the right tools, you should be able to make revisions of different quotes. Okay. To make resource management and capacity plans even more accurate, the correct dates should be allocated to each phase. So you could, again, using the right tools, you should be able to produce, whether it's a Gantt chart or, something else, you should be able to set durations on each of those phases. Okay, so if, let's say, for example, in the first phase, we have estimated, just as an example, 10 hours that we need of a designer. We need to know for our capacity plans, okay, so we've got 10 hours that we've estimated. What duration do we have to complete those 10 hours? It may be that you've got 2 days to complete the 10 hours, but then again, it may be that you've got a whole month to complete those 10 hours. So you need to ensure that you do have date ranges and timescales set to each phase, which has got the accurate number of hours estimated and the resource needed. And then what you should be able to do is you should be able to produce within a project management system, you should be able to produce a chart that looks a bit like this. So this is just a standard capacity chart, and you can see you've got all of the resource and you've got the number of hours that have been estimated. So as long as you've got your estimates accurate as possible, and you've got duration set to those, and you've got the correct resource estimated within the estimate as well, you should be able to get really good, accurate capacity plans like this. Okay. This is an example of a sort of calendar bookings type tool. Now, another challenge that many agencies encounter is that although even if they are estimating quite accurately, when they go to schedule, they're actually not scheduling from the estimated number of hours. Now, if you look at the highlighted area on the bottom column, okay, so that is actually dragged the estimate basically from the estimate into this area where we can start booking those hours out. So start looking at your resource management. All right. So by looking at that one line that's slightly highlighted, we can see that we estimated 5 hours of a designer in the create and design phase of this task for Coca-Cola, as an example. Okay. We can then schedule that out. They will then look at what's been allocated to them and they'll have reassurance of, okay, so this is what's been allocated for this task, this job, and you can also allocate it to the correct resource as well, which we'll discuss a little more later on. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to launch a poll. So if any of you would like to, if you could just answer the poll, I'll collect the results and I'll send you some feedback on those afterwards. So I'm just going to launch that and I'll leave it up there just for a second. So if you could answer that would be great. Brilliant. So we've got some good answers there. Perfect. And I'll gather the results from the polls that I'll be issuing at the end, and we can have a little evaluation on those. Now, so moving on to the next topic, what effect does inaccurate capacity planning and resource management have on an agency? Okay, so what you're looking at here is some results from a food report. Now, the food report is produced from the Agency Food Group, which is a LinkedIn group for like-minded individuals to discuss issues and challenges that they face within their agencies. So this one report is showing you results from Q1 2015 and Q1 2016. And as you can see, the number one issue that keeps occurring is over-servicing. Okay, the second is increasing profitability, and these both go hand in hand. Okay, what we also have researched is why over-servicing is occurring within so many agencies. So this survey is taken from I think it's about over 70 agencies within the UK. Okay, so looking at the five main reasons that we've evaluated, we've come up with inaccurate estimating. So again, all of these are relating back to the topics that we have just been discussing. So inaccurate estimating, people have, it's small problems like they don't have a separate estimate to the quote. So that could be one of the key reasons. And also they don't have the calculations internal to say, this is how many hours we can sell, this is how many we should be selling. The next one is spending too much time on the job. Now, this usually occurs because staff do not have clarity on the estimated number of hours. So what they do is they tend to spend too much time on it. They're enjoying the job too much. You know how creative people can, get into the zone and spend too much time being creative. And that means that you're, essentially going over budget on jobs. So by using things like the calendar bookings tool, actually allocating the hours from the estimate, this should be reduced a lot, okay? The next one is human error. Now this happens, from time to time. It's something that you can't really avoid. However, you can reduce the risk. So if you are estimating accurately and if you have a full project management system in place, by recording the time, it should be able to produce an estimate versus actual type analysis. This will enable you to keep track of jobs and look at, okay, so we have human error in this phase on these particular jobs very often, and you can look into whether it's the wrong resource, whether a number of reasons that it could be, but it will basically give you the visibility to analyze where this human error is coming from. Using a different resource. Now, again, looking back at the estimate, it may be that a junior could take a lot longer than a senior on a task. So when estimating, this should always be considered because different amounts of time will need to be allocated to different resource. Okay, and then the last one is the client moves the goalposts. Now, this is an issue that many agencies have, and there's a couple of different things that you could do. So the first question would really be, is who is paying for this? I know that many agencies, they could have, a lot of amends that the client doesn't end up paying for. So it may be that in the estimate, you do allow a bit of time for amends as well, okay, at the end of that. So I'm going to release the second poll now. So if you could just answer that one for me as well. And again, I will gather these results and give you all an analysis after this webinar. So I'll just give you a minute or so to do that. Okay, I can see some interesting results coming through actually at the moment. It's all obviously confidential, but I can see that the highest at the moment is inaccurate estimating and spending too much time on a job. So one thing for inaccurate estimating, if you are using, say, a full project management tool, when you're building an estimate, you should be able, if you're using time recording aspect correctly, which I will have another webinar on that, hopefully in a month or so, so I'll obviously send you all the details, you should be able to get that visibility on the estimate versus the actual. So you can see a true reflection or a truer reflection of, how many hours do we need for particular jobs and what resource do we need for particular jobs as well. And again, just going down to spending too much time on a job, by looking at the estimate versus actual, again, that will give you the visibility. But what you'll also be able to do is, if you're using the right tools, you should be able to have those estimates drawn into a calendar bookings type tool, which will then give your staff a true reflection of this is what needs to be done for this task and this is the duration that you have to complete the job, so they feel more comfortable and they've got a sort of, a time limit on them. Okay, so I'm going to close that poll now. Okay, so just to briefly summarise some of the tips that we've been through so far. So number one, as I'm sure you've gathered from this webinar, is you need to estimate accurately and honestly. That is key. Another one, which I've literally just sort of briefly gone over, is schedule hours from the estimate, and that will enable your staff to feel comfortable in these are the hours that I have to complete this job. If they do go over, they should be able to write a note when time recording, so you can start to have visibility on the actuals and say, right, in this particular job, in this particular phase, we can see that we need more time in design, because it's not just a one-off. They are spending, too much time on it, every job, and it may be that they need more time. So, having that visibility on the estimate versus actual, as I keep mentioning, is key as well. Okay, report on capacity. So this will help you to keep track of your targets. So you know how many hours you should be selling throughout the business, whether it's each week or each month that you want to monitor this. Each week, obviously, is better. But each agency works differently. So by reporting on that, you can make sure that the jobs coming through are, you are selling enough hours. And if you're not, it may be that you need to look into, okay, so we're not selling enough hours. In which areas are we lacking? Do we need to, reduce our resource? Do we need to adjust it slightly? The next one is set accurate timescales on jobs. Again, if you want to report on capacity accurately, that is key. And another one, which I know a lot of agencies will use a number of different tools for a number of different project management features. So it may be that actually having all features integrated, there's no room for error, because your estimate will automatically, develop into a Gantt chart for you to put timescales on. You will then be able to get capacity reports from the back of the system automatically. You will then be able to, when you go into your calendar bookings, you will have the estimated hours already there. Any adjustments that are done to the estimate, which should only be done if the brief is changed, that will, be accounted for when booking the hours out. So there's no sort of room for error in terms of project management. And if there is any error, which obviously it happens, you will have visibility on where the error has occurred. Okay. And finally, What are the benefits of using the right tools? So, giving the visibility to make more informed business decisions regarding things like availability. So, that will give you visibility on, like I said before, targets on, the hours that you want to get through, that you want to sell in the business. It will also give you visibility on if your capacity is really, really full. You can look at things like, I'll go over this more in following webinars on reporting, but you should be able to gather reports that shows you things like which clients are more profitable or which clients are more valuable to your business. And then you can sort of you can make informed decisions based on the capacity that is in the business. It will obviously improve organisation within the business massively. So although, for agencies that use spreadsheets, they work well for them, but how long can you run a business on a spreadsheet? By having it all in one place, after sort of, I'd say, even as a shorter while as it could be a month, maybe 2 months of running a fully integrated project management system, you will have improved organisation. You will also have so much visibility on where organisation maybe isn't, it is lacking slightly, but then also you'll have the visibility on where, you've got the organisation nailed down and, it's running smoothly. Okay. And obvious benefits for using these procedures when doing your capacity planning and resource management are you'll have happier staff, happier clients, and happier management. Okay, so capacity planning and resource management is so key within a business. As I showed in the results from the food report, on the slides previously, you can see that capacity plan and resource management does cause over-servicing, okay? Otherwise known as under-recovery. That should maybe be the new name that we adopt for over-servicing, under-recovery on jobs, which is, again, as we saw in the results, is predominantly, not allowing to increase profitability. Okay, so I'm just going to release the final poll and then that is it. So again, if you could just take 2 seconds to give me a bit of feedback, that would be fantastic. And then I will let you go. And again, if anybody else would like to ask any questions, or if they would like if they would like me to send a recording of this presentation over, feel free to drop me an email and I can get that over to you. I think I've got all of the feedback there, so I hope everybody enjoys the sunshine today, and I will send details of the next webinars following. I'm glad you found it useful and I look forward to the next one. Thanks very much, guys.